Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Stay to the end. This story doesn't end the way you think it will. She didn't see me walk in. Not right away. The lights in the restaurant were low, flickering like they were too tired to pretend anymore. Same as me. I stood just far enough back to blend in with the shadows, watching her tuck her hair behind her ear and lean in to whisper something that made him laugh. Her fingers brushed his arm like they'd done it 1,000 times. Maybe they had. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the woman who still had my name, still wore the ring I gave her, sitting there like everything in our life was disposable. Like I was disposable. That's when I felt it in my pocket. Cold. Small. Heavier than it ever should have been. The ring. Not hers. Mine. The one I hadn't taken off since our wedding day, even when I broke my hand 2 winters ago, and it nearly cut off my circulation. The one I spun around my finger while I waited for her to come home late, over and over again. That stupid circle I thought meant something. Until now. I didn't plan to walk over. My feet moved before my brain caught up. I was standing at their table, blinking in the candlelight like I'd stepped into some alternate reality. She looked up. She blinked once. Then she said my name like it was a question. Like I was the one out of place. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't ask her why. I just reached into my pocket, pulled out the ring, and placed it next to her champagne flute. You dropped something, I said. And then I walked away. Or at least I tried to. Because 5 steps later, I heard her say something to him. And that's when everything really started unraveling. I didn't want to stop walking. I should have kept going. Out the door. Into the street. Anywhere but there. But I heard her voice, sharp, startled, but not in the way you'd expect. Not guilty. Not heartbroken. Just annoyed. He actually did it, she said. I froze. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to him. To the man she chose to share my evenings with, my silences, my home. My spine turned to ice. That sentence bounced around in my skull like a ricochet, shattering everything I had left holding me together. I turned back around. Her eyes met mine for a split second before she looked away, like I was some strange interruption to her date night. And him, he didn't even flinch. Just leaned back in his seat and sipped his drink like I was part of the entertainment. I told you he wouldn't make a scene, she added, smiling with her mouth but not her eyes. I stood there like a fool, trying to process the performance I'd just become a background actor in. My hands trembled, not from rage, not even from sadness. Just pure disbelief. You think you know someone. You think your silence, your forgiveness, your patience earns you love. But apparently, all it gets you is a front row seat to your own humiliation. I should have walked out then. I wish I had. But I'm not the kind of guy who knows when to leave. I stepped back to the table, heart thudding like it was trying to warn me. Was this a joke to you? I asked. My voice came out quieter than I wanted. Almost like I didn't want to know the answer. She sighed, like I'd just asked her to explain algebra. You handed me your ring in public, Wendell. What did you expect would happen? She said, swirling her glass. A dramatic breakdown? Me falling at your feet in regret. I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't the woman I married. Or maybe she always was, and I was too eager to believe otherwise. Her face was the same, but her eyes held a distance I hadn't noticed before. Not until now. The man beside her finally spoke. You've made your point. Why not let us finish our meal? I blinked at him. Us. Us. That word carved into me deeper than I was ready for. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. But I reached down, took the ring I'd placed on the table, and stared at it. Then I turned, walked to the nearest waiter, handed it to him, and said, Could you give this to her when she's done pretending? I left without waiting for a reply. But just as I stepped onto the street, I heard the sound of a chair scraping violently across the floor behind me. And a voice, not hers, yelling after me. Wait, you don't know the whole story. I didn't turn around right away. The voice wasn't hers. It was his. Grant, or Gregory, or whatever name she'd mumbled weeks ago when I asked who kept texting her after midnight. Until that moment, he had looked untouchable. One of those men who seemed like they'd never had to fight for anything in their lives. But now, his voice cracked. His chair clattered to the floor behind him. Something had shifted. I said, Wait, he shouted again. I stopped, halfway between the restaurant and the blur of traffic lights outside. I shouldn't have. I knew I shouldn't have. But the part of me that still wanted answers, the pathetic, aching part, turned back around. He jogged toward me, his designer jacket flapping, eyes wide with something that almost looked like panic. Behind him, Darla stood, frozen, her lips slightly parted. Not a word from her. Just that same detached, indifferent stare that was starting to feel like a stranger's face. "I didn't know," he said. "About the ring. I didn't know she was still married." "She told me you were," he hesitated. "Separated." That word punched me harder than anything else that night. Separated. The lie must have come so easily to her. She probably practiced it in the mirror before putting on that green dress. Maybe she even laughed about it on the way over. "Why would she lie to you?" I asked him, my voice like gravel. Why bother lying to someone she clearly trusts more than her own husband? He looked back at her, then at me, then rubbed the back of his neck like a school kid caught cheating on a test. I thought you were out of the picture." "I wouldn't have," he shook his head. "I swear, man. I'm not trying to ruin anything." Too late. I stood there, staring at this well-dressed stranger who had somehow wandered into the ruins of my life and made himself comfortable. And still, I couldn't stop wondering why he looked more rattled than she did. "I didn't know she lied to me," he repeated, quieter this time. "But I do know she lied to you." That stopped me cold. "What are you talking about?" I asked. He hesitated. And then the real crack appeared, not in me, but in him. "She told me she got the money from her dad. For the condo. For the car. Even the down payment on the retreat in Sedona. But she said something last week that didn't sit right. She was on the phone late, and she mentioned your name. Not fondly. Something about your savings finally paying off. I didn't think much of it until tonight. Until the ring." My stomach dropped. "What money?" He blinked. "You don't know?" I felt the ground tilt beneath me. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. In that moment, I remembered the joint investment account she insisted we opened 3 years ago. I remembered the night she made me transfer my quarterly bonuses into it because it's for our future, Wendell. And I remembered the day she changed the password, saying she was rebalancing the portfolio. I hadn't checked it since. I trusted her. Now, I could barely breathe. Behind us, Darla stepped forward, arms crossed, her face taut with irritation, not guilt. "You had to go there," she muttered toward him. He ignored her. "You might want to check your account." I walked away, this time without hesitation. I didn't look back again, because if I had, I might have done something I'd regret. But back home, I opened my laptop, and what I found made the night at the restaurant feel like a warm-up act. The login screen blinked at me like it was daring me to press enter. I hadn't touched that account in over a year, maybe longer. It was supposed to be the safety net, this someday fund. The thing that gave Darla peace of mind while I skipped new shoes and packed leftovers for lunch. She used to call it our future in numbers. I guess that was true. Numbers don't lie. People do. I typed the password I remembered, the first restaurant we ever went to, plus her birth year. It didn't work. I tried another, and another. On the 4th try, I almost laughed when it worked. Hemingway 29. A dog she hated, and a street we never lived on. It wasn't our password. It was hers. The screen loaded slowly. My palms were sweating. My heart thudded like it knew something I didn't. When the numbers finally appeared, I stared at them for a full minute. Balance, $218. 39. I clicked through the transactions. Page after page. Plane tickets. Hotel bookings. Transfers labeled Private LLC. Spa retreats. Even a monthly payment to a company I didn't recognize. Every charge was clean, timed, spaced out. She'd been bleeding the account dry for over a year. Maybe longer. And every time I'd asked if we were still contributing, she smiled and said, "It's growing. Slowly, but it's growing." I sat back in my chair, stunned. I don't even remember closing the laptop. I don't remember getting up. But I found myself in the hallway, staring at the framed photo from our 5th anniversary, the one in that fake vineyard she made me pose at for Instagram. My smile looked real. That's the part that gutted me most. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, still dazed. One new message. From an unknown number. "Wendell, it's not just about the money. You need to know what she's planning. Please call me. Holly." I stared at the name for a second, trying to place it. Holly, where had I? Oh, Darla's co-worker. The one from the marketing firm. She was always polite at parties, but I never got more than a head nod from her. Why would she text me now? And how did she even get my number? I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "Wendell? I'm sorry, I know this is awkward. I shouldn't even be doing this. But I couldn't sleep knowing what she's about to do." I didn't say anything. I just waited. "She's quitting the firm," Holly whispered, like someone might be listening. She put in her resignation under a fake name. She's transferring everything into a holding account that isn't in her name. And she's leaving the country in 2 weeks. My stomach twisted. I think she's going with that guy, the one from the restaurant. They've been planning this for months. The retreat in Sedona? It was a test run. I sat down slowly, like my knees had given up. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Holly paused. Because I used to believe in her. I looked up to her. But lately, she talks about you like your furniture. Like you're just something she needs to get past to start her next life. I didn't have the strength to respond. There's one more thing, she added. You're not the only one she's done this to. That stopped me cold. What do you mean? I mean, she's done this before. Another city. Another name. I only found out because I saw an old ID in her desk drawer. Darla isn't even her real name. My throat went dry. She's done this before, Wendell. She finds men who won't question her. Then she drains them and disappears. The line went quiet for a beat. Please do something. Before she vanishes again. The silence after that call was the kind you feel in your bones. The house around me suddenly felt hollow, like I was the last person left inside a building that had already been evacuated. I just sat there, phone in hand, breathing like each inhale was a decision. Every memory started rewriting itself. Our first trip together, the handwritten notes she used to leave me, the wedding vows. All of it now under question. How do you even begin to process the idea that your wife might not be who she says she is, literally? I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face twisted into something I couldn't recognize. Not angry, not remorseful, just indifferent. The kind of expression someone gives to a clerk at the store when they're tired of waiting in line. I kept thinking about what Holly said, how Darla had done this before. Different city, different name. Like a snake shedding skin whenever the act got too heavy. The next morning, I did something I never imagined I'd do. I called my cousin Eli. We hadn't talked in years, mostly because I was always the quiet one, and Eli always knew too much about things no one should. He used to be a tech contractor for some federal agency. I never asked which. Let's just say he once wiped a parking ticket off the record in real time. Wendell, he answered groggily. Wow, did someone die? Not yet, I said. But I think my wife might have. He blinked into the phone, confused. I told him everything. Well, the shortened version. The ring. The guy. The money. The coworker. The name. I need to know who she is. Her real name. Her real life. Everything. There was a long pause. You want me to run her? I want to know if I ever actually married her. That got his attention. He told me to send over everything I had. Photos, numbers, any documents with her name on it. Especially the investment account details. I dumped it all into a zip file and waited. While Eli worked on digging into the mystery woman I'd been living with for over a decade, I sat in the kitchen staring at the empty chair across from me. I remembered the night she told me she loved my boring soul. That's how she said it. You calm me, Wendell. You're boring in the best way. I took it as a compliment. Like an idiot. 2 hours later, Eli sent a message. You're going to want to sit down for this. There was a PDF attached. I opened it. Her name wasn't Darla. It was Sabrina Wells. Born in Nevada. Moved to Arizona in 2006. Arrested under suspicion of identity theft in 2009, but charges dropped. 2 marriages under different aliases. Both ended with civil disputes over disappearing funds. Both ex-husbands filed fraud reports that went nowhere. One of them even posted warnings about her on a private message board for victims of financial abuse. I felt sick. Not just emotionally. Physically. She'd done this before. Twice. And now I was number 3. But just as I started to spiral, another message from Eli came through. Check your front porch. I walked to the door, confused. Opened it. Nothing there. Just a white sedan pulling away from the curb. Then a voice behind me said, You're Wendell, right? I turned around. A man stood halfway down my driveway. Mid-50s. Worn suit. Haunted eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. She did it to me too, he said. My throat tightened. You knew her? He nodded. She was my wife. Back when she went by Melissa. My knees almost buckled. I saw your name in the old court documents. I figured I wasn't the only one anymore. We stood there in the fading daylight, 2 men bound together by the same ghost. He didn't flinch when I asked his name, just said, Marlon, like it was all the identity he had left. He didn't smile, didn't offer a handshake. He looked at my house like it had been his once too, like he'd stood in the same spot, watching the same storm roll in. His eyes darted toward the window like he half expected her to appear behind the curtains, smirking at the chaos she left behind. She cleaned out everything I had, he said finally, voice dry and low. Retirement. Inheritance. Sold my car while I was on a work trip. Told the dealership I signed the papers. They didn't even question it. She forged my signature perfectly. I felt cold seep through me. What name did she use with you? Melissa Halden. Said she was from Sacramento. Grew up poor. Told this big story about her dad being a gambler and how she never had anything stable until me. He gave a sad laugh. Turns out she just needed someone to stand still long enough to rob blind. We sat on my front steps. I didn't know why I let him stay. Maybe because for the first time in days, I didn't feel crazy. I wasn't just some desperate husband unraveling over a cheating wife. I was part of a pattern. One of many. I tried reporting it, he continued. But she was always one step ahead. When I finally tracked her down in Denver, she'd already married some college professor. Changed her name again. They said I didn't have enough proof to pursue it interstate. I looked at him. So why now? Why come to me? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a wrinkled envelope. Inside was a photo, blurry, like it had been taken quickly. But it was her. Darla. Or Sabrina. Or Melissa. Sitting at some patio cafe with a man I didn't recognize. Smiling like she hadn't just burned lives to the ground. I've been following her for months, Marlon said. Not to hurt her. I just want answers. Closure, maybe. And then I found out about you. Saw the wedding registry online. That's how I knew she hadn't stopped. I stared at the photo. The man next to her wore a wedding band. Different guy. Not the one from the restaurant. A new one. She's engaged again? I asked, barely able to get the words out. He nodded. This time in New Hampshire. Name she's using now? Claire Sutton. I only found out last week. That's why I drove down here. It felt like the ground under my house was shifting. How many lives had she rewritten? How many names had she buried behind charm and forged documents? I want to stop her, Marlon said quietly. Not for revenge, but before she ruins someone else. Before someone ends up worse than broke. I didn't speak for a long time. Then I said, she hasn't left me yet. She's still here. She's planning to leave in 2 weeks. His eyebrows lifted. Then this is your chance. That night, Marlon slept on my couch. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, I had clarity. She wasn't going to disappear quietly this time. But I had no idea what I was walking into. Because the next morning, when I opened my email, there was a message from Darla. Just one line. We need to talk. Tonight. No lies. I must have read her email 100 times. We need to talk. Tonight. No lies. That last part felt like a joke, like she thought she could still throw around words like truth and expect me to forget the trail of destruction she left behind. But the thing is, I wanted her to talk. Not because I thought I'd get closure. No. I wanted to look her in the eye and see if she flinched when I said her real name. I wanted to watch her try to spin another story now that I wasn't the clueless husband with my head in the sand. She said to meet at the old library parking lot, somewhere public, quiet, dimly lit after hours. The irony wasn't lost on me. The place where I used to wait in the car while she ran inside for creative inspiration, back when she said she was writing a book. I used to feel proud, thinking I was supporting an artist. Turns out I was funding a criminal. Marlon offered to come with me, to wait in a nearby car. I didn't object. I needed a witness. Or maybe just a human tether in case things went sideways. When I pulled in, she was already there, leaning against the hood of her car, arms folded, hair tied back like she was preparing for war. She didn't look scared or guilty. She looked calculated, like she'd rehearsed this a dozen times. Wendell, she said like we were still playing house. You look tired. I know what you did, I said flatly. She didn't blink. You're going to have to be more specific. I took a step forward. Melissa, Sabrina, Claire, which one are you tonight? For the first time, her expression cracked. Just a little. Not fear, more like irritation. Like I'd spoiled the surprise at a party. So, you've been digging, she muttered. I met Marlon, I added. That stopped her. She looked past me instinctively, scanning the lot. You're working with him? Funny. That's what I thought when I realized you weren't working alone. Her jaw clenched. You don't understand anything. You think this is black and white. It's not. You don't know what I've had to do to survive. I gave you everything. I said, my voice rising. And you drained it like it was a game. I was your husband, Darla, or whoever you are. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You were an account number with a wedding band. That's all you ever were. That's all any of you were. That hit harder than I expected, but I held my ground. And what about the next guy? The one in New Hampshire? Is he just another deposit slip? Her face tightened. She didn't answer. I know everything now. About the accounts. The fake IDs. The disappearing acts. She looked at me then, really looked, and said something that still echoes in my head. Then you should know how this ends. Suddenly, she stepped back, reached into her coat pocket, and tossed something at my feet. A flash drive. What's on it? I asked warily. Proof. Of everything. But not just about me. About the people who taught me how to do it. The ones I've been running from. I bent to pick it up, eyes never leaving hers. I was never supposed to stay with you this long, she whispered. But for a while, I almost did. I didn't know if that made it better or worse. And before I could say anything else, she turned, got in her car, and drove off into the dark. I didn't chase her. But Marlon's car pulled up beside me a few seconds later. What the hell was that? He asked. I opened my hand and held up the flash drive. I think we just entered something way bigger than either of us thought. I didn't sleep that night. The flash drive sat next to my laptop like it was humming with secrets. I must have stared at it for a solid hour before I finally plugged it in. And even then, I hesitated before opening the folder labeled simply, Records. I don't know what I expected. Blackmail? A confession? One last manipulation? But what I found was the truth. Videos. PDFs. Screenshots. Names. Transactions. Everything. Not just of her, but of the people she had worked with. Learned from. A couple in Oregon who'd been running a financial grooming scheme for years, training women to enter lives like mine, gain trust, drain accounts, and vanish before authorities could catch up. It wasn't random. It was organized. And she had broken away from them. The last folder was labeled Exit. Inside were emails, her messages to someone named L, asking how to get out, how to disappear from them. In one of the recordings, she sounded scared. Not the woman I saw in the restaurant. Not the cold manipulator in the parking lot. She sounded trapped. I couldn't explain the mix of anger and sympathy that followed. But for the first time, I understood something I'd refused to before. She had used me, yes. She had lied, yes. But somewhere along the way, she had tried to claw her way out. That didn't excuse it, but it explained it. I gave everything on the drive to Marlon. He knew someone in law enforcement who still owed him a favor. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. And oddly, knowing the full truth gave me exactly that. Weeks passed. No word from her. No surprise calls. No late-night knocks. Just silence. And it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. Marlon moved on. Got involved in a nonprofit helping men recover from financial abuse. I joined him. Turns out there are more of us than you'd think. Guys who ignored red flags because we thought love meant staying quiet. But now I speak up, and I help others do the same. And me? I started over. I moved out of the house. Got a small apartment near a lake. I spend most mornings walking my dog, sipping cheap coffee, and, for the first time in years, feeling like my life is mine again. I don't know where she is now, but I hope, wherever she is, she finally chose to stop running. I did. Thanks for watching this story on the Reddit Confessions channel. Have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be living a lie? Tell us in the comments. What moment from this story hit you the hardest? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that dig deep.